The cry in the dark. It was almost midnight when Claire heard it, a faint, trembling cry like a child calling out from somewhere deep below the floor. She froze, one hand still holding the cardboard box of kitchen plates. The house was supposed to be empty. That's what the realtor told her. That's what the signed papers confirmed. But now, standing alone in the middle of her new kitchen, surrounded by unpacked boxes and silence, she was certain she wasn't alone. The sound came again, a whimper, low and distant. From the basement, Claire set the box down gently. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Maybe it was a cat trapped under the floorboards. Maybe the old pipes groaned like this. Maybe no, it wasn't just sound. It was crying. The kind that chills your spine. She reached for her phone. No service, of course. The house was on the edge of a small rural town in Vermont, surrounded by forest and forgotten roads. She had fallen in love with its quiet charm, the big front porch, the large backyard where she imagined growing tomatoes. A fresh start after everything that had happened in Boston. But now that quiet charm felt like a trap. Claire grabbed a flashlight from the drawer. Even though the house had power, she didn't want the lights on. Something about using a flashlight made it feel less real, like a dream. She could just step away from if needed. She tiptoed to the basement door. It was old, painted white with peeling edges, and a key still sat in the lock. She turned it. It clicked open with an eerie softness. The staircase creaked under her feet. The cry had stopped. Halfway down the stairs, Claire paused. The beam of her flashlight danced across stone walls, dusty shelves, and a floor scattered with old furniture. Nothing moved. "Hello," she called out, her voice quiet but clear. Silence. She swallowed hard and stepped fully into the basement. The smell of damp wood and mildew hit her. She waved the flashlight slowly, sweeping across the space. Nothing, no child, no animal, no person. And then thump. She swung the light toward the far corner. Something had moved. "Is someone there?" Claire asked again, louder now, trying to keep her voice firm. Another cry, this time more desperate. But it wasn't in the room with her. It was beneath. Claire stepped forward and noticed something strange. A square outline on the floor, faint but clear. A trapdoor. There was a basement under the basement. She knelt down and brushed dust off the edges. A small iron ring served as a handle. She hesitated, then pulled. The door creaked open with effort, revealing a wooden ladder descending into pitch black. The cries grew louder, now. Claire, frightened, real. It was a child. Claire's mind raced. Had someone abandoned a child down there? Was this part of some twisted crime? Her stomach churned. She should call the police. She should leave the house, but she couldn't walk away from that sound. She climbed down. The air below was colder, heavier. Her flashlight flickered for a moment before steadying. She stepped off the last rung into a narrow tunnel made of stone and dirt. The walls were moist. The crying echoed louder now, bouncing off the narrow corridor. She moved quickly, following the sound. 10 feet in, she found a door. It wasn't locked. She pushed it open slowly. Inside was a small room, barely tall enough to stand in, and in the far corner, curled up under a blanket that looked more like an old rug, was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, pale, thin, and shaking. The girl looked up at Claire with wide, terrified eyes. She didn't speak, just stared. Claire knelt down, holding the flashlight low. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Claire. What's your name?" The girl didn't answer. Her lips trembled. She looked too weak to speak. Claire took off her jacket and gently wrapped it around her. "You're safe now. I've got you." She picked the child up, shockingly lightened, turned back toward the tunnel. As she walked back toward the ladder, questions flooded her mind. Who was this child? How long had she been down here? Why didn't the realtor say anything? And then, just before she began climbing, she heard a voice. Not a child's, not her own. It came from the room she had just left. She shouldn't have found her. The voice whispered. Claire spun around. No one was there. Her legs froze for a second. The air felt thick, like something was watching her. She clutched the girl tighter and climbed the ladder as fast as she could. She bolted the trapdoor shut, locked the basement door, sat down in the kitchen, breathless, still holding the child. She checked her phone again. Now it had signal. Her hands shook as she dialed 911. "There's a little girl," Claire told the dispatcher, "in my basement. I don't know how long she's been there, but someone else was down there too. I heard them." The line was quiet for a second. "Ma'am," the dispatcher said carefully, "what's the address?" Claire gave it a pause. Then the dispatcher said something that made Claire's blood run cold. That house was sealed 10 years ago after a missing child case. No one was supposed to be living there. Claire looked down at the little girl in her arms, and the girl whispered her first word, "Help." The missing girl. Claire didn't sleep that night. The little girl sat curled up in a blanket on the couch, staring at the wall, not speaking, not blinking much, just staring as if she was somewhere else entirely, somewhere far darker. The paramedics arrived first, checking the girl's vitals. She was malnourished but stable. Then came the police, 2 officers who looked as shocked as Claire felt when they saw the child. The younger one, Officer Dean, kept looking at the trapdoor in disbelief. "There's no record of this," he muttered to his partner. "The original basement plans show nothing below ground level." The older officer, Detective Langford, crouched next to the girl. "Do you know your name, sweetheart?" The girl looked at Claire, not the officer. She pointed a shaky finger at her and whispered, "She heard me." Claire felt a chill down her spine. The detective nodded, quietly thoughtful. "We'll take her to the hospital for a full checkup. But ma'am, we'll need to ask you some questions." Claire nodded. Still shaking slightly, she explained everything. The cry, the basement, the tunnel, the hidden room, and the voice. "You're sure you heard someone else?" Langford asked, leaning against the kitchen table. "Yes," Claire replied firmly. "A man," he said. "She shouldn't have found her." The 2 officers exchanged a look. "What?" Claire asked. Langford sighed. 10 years ago, a 7-year-old girl went missing from this neighborhood. Her name was Eva Granger. The house was owned by her uncle at the time, Joseph Granger. He claimed she ran away, but no trace of her was found. He disappeared soon after. The case went cold. Claire blinked. "And no one thought to search the basement?" "There was no second basement on the record," Langford said. "And when the house was repossessed, the doors were locked. It sat untouched for years until the bank put it up for sale. Someone cleaned it up, but that trapdoor must have been hidden all this time." Claire looked toward the living room, where the girl sat. "Is that her? Is that Eva?" Langford shrugged. "Too early to tell. But if it is, she's been missing for 10 years. Claire couldn't breathe for a second. That child in her arms earlier, could she really have been hidden down there for a decade? But who had fed her? Who had kept her alive? And why did she look no older than 6 or 7? The next morning, the town was buzzing. News trucks parked at the end of Clare Street. Reporters knocked on her door, but the police kept them away. Still, the story spread like wildfire. Missing girl found alive after 10 years, hidden under abandoned home. Claire stayed indoors. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that trapdoor, that room, that voice, and the girl. Claire couldn't stop thinking about her. Something didn't add up. No child could survive alone underground for 10 years and come out looking exactly the same age. It made no sense. At noon, she got a call from Detective Langford. "Can you come down to the station?" he asked. "We'd like you to hear something." Claire agreed. An hour later, she sat in a small interview room with a cup of bad coffee. Langford placed a file on the table. "This is a photo of Eva Granger, age 7, taken the day before she vanished." Claire looked at the photo. A bright-eyed girl with curly hair and dimples. She nodded. That could be her. It really could. Langford frowned. "That's the problem." He pulled out another sheet. "This is a photo of the girl you found. From this morning." Claire's heart skipped. It was identical. Not similar, identical. The same face, the same hair, the same small scar on the chin. Langford looked at her. "She hasn't aged a single day." Claire blinked, stunned. "That's not possible. We thought maybe the photo was old or a mistake, but the doctors confirmed it. Bone structure, height, teeth development. She's biologically 7 years old." Claire whispered, "She should be 17. Langford nodded. "Exactly. So we ran her fingerprints. They match Ava's perfectly." He let the silence hang before continuing. "Claire, either this girl's been frozen in time somehow, or she's not who we think she is." Claire stared at the photo again, a chill running down her arms. "Has she said anything?" she asked. Langford hesitated. "Just one thing." Repeatedly. "What?" He flipped open his notebook. "She keeps saying, 'He told me to be quiet. He said time would stop if I stayed still.'" Claire felt like the air had been knocked out of her. "What does that mean?" she asked. Langford leaned forward. "We were hoping you might find out." Because she still refuses to talk to anyone except you. Claire sat back, overwhelmed. I'm not a detective. I'm not even good with kids. I just moved here to forget my life in Boston. Langford gave her a kind look. Sometimes the people who aren't looking for answers are the ones who find the truth. He paused. Would you talk to her again? Claire hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'll try. That night, she went to the hospital. Evify, that really was her, was resting in a small room, a teddy bear placed beside her. Claire stepped in quietly. The girl looked up and smiled faintly. You came. Claire sat beside her. Of course I did. The girl's voice was hoarse but calm. You heard me. No one ever hears me. Claire took her hand gently. I hear you now. Eva leaned in, whispering. He said no one should find me. He said it wasn't time. Claire's skin prickled. Who, Eva? The girl's eyes drifted to the window. The man in the wall. Claire blinked. What? Eva looked at her again. He lives behind the stones. He told me stories. He said if I moved too much, I'd grow up too fast and forget everything. Claire's voice trembled. Is he still there? Eva nodded once. Slowly, he's waiting. Claire gripped her hand tighter, but in her mind, one word echoed again and again. Why? The man in the wall. Claire couldn't stop thinking about Ava's words. He lives behind the stones. He told me stories. If I moved too much, I'd grow up too fast and forget everything. That night, Claire lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling of her new home. The wind brushed against the windows, and the wood of the house groaned, softly, ancient bones shifting. She didn't feel safe anymore. Not after what Eva had said. Not after what she had seen. It wasn't just mystery anymore. It felt like something, unnatural. By morning, she had made a decision. She called Detective Langford. I want to go back into the basement, she said. Langford hesitated. Claire, I need to see it again. I need answers. Langford sighed. I'll meet you there, but you're not going in alone. By the time Claire pulled into the driveway, Langford and Officer Dean were already there. Dean carried a heavy-duty flashlight and some tools. The air felt colder than it should have been for mid. The trees around the house stood like silent guards. Together, the three of them stepped into the basement. Claire led the way to the trapdoor. I locked it after that night, she said. Langford nodded. We'll open it carefully. You sure you want to do this? Claire looked at him. That girl is still scared. She talks about a man no one has seen, and she hasn't aged in 10 years. Whatever this is, it didn't end when we pulled her out. Langford and Dean opened the trapdoor and lowered the ladder again. Claire hesitated at the top. The air smelled, just like before, cold, damp, and still. She climbed down. The tunnel looked just as she remembered, narrow, shadowy, and far too quiet. They reached the door at the end. Langford pushed it open. The small stone room sat still and empty, like it was frozen in time. No furniture, just cold dirt and stone. But something was off. Claire moved her flashlight over the far wall, where the stone looked darker, wet, almost. Wait, she said. Here she ran her hand along a section of wall where the stones looked newly disturbed. A few pebbles tumbled free. Langford stepped beside her. What is that? Officer Dean examined it. Looks like someone sealed this up recently. Claire's heart thudded. Behind the stones, Langford took out a pry bar from the bag he'd brought and carefully chipped at the wall. After a few minutes, a gap appeared, a hollow space behind the stone. The beam from Dean's flashlight cut into it, and what they saw made them all take a step back. Inside the wall was a narrow crawl space, lined with bones, dozens of tiny animal skeletons, rats, birds, maybe even a cat, and in the center of the wall cavity, drawn in a strange brownish-black substance, were symbols, circles, spirals, a human figure with hollow eyes, markings that didn't belong in any ordinary house. Dean cursed under his breath. What the hell is this? Claire stared, unable to look away. This is where he lives. Langford shook his head. It's ritualistic. Whoever built this, they weren't trying to hide a child. They were performing something. Claire whispered. He stopped time. That's what she said. Langford looked at her. You think something heard from aging? I don't know what to think anymore, Claire admitted. But she's terrified of whatever it was. And this thing in the wallet's connected. As they stepped away from the crawl space, a gust of freezing air pushed through the tunnel. It wasn't from outside. Claire spun around. The trapdoor at the far end had slammed shut. Did you close it? Langford asked. Dean shook his head. No one touched it. Langford rushed forward, climbed the ladder, and tried to push it open. It wouldn't budge. It stuck. He called down, "Something's holding it." And then they heard it, a whisper, like wind inside the stones. She wasn't supposed to leave. Claire backed into the wall. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Dean's flashlight flickered. "Yep." The whisper came again, louder this time, more urgent. "You brought her out. Now you must go in." And then something slammed against the crawlspace wall from inside. Dean dropped the flashlight. "We need to get out of here now." Langford yanked the trapdoor open finally, using all his strength. Daylight poured in like a lifeline. Claire scrambled up the ladder, followed closely by Dean. Langford came last, pulling the door shut behind them. They didn't speak as they bolted the door, then sealed the trapdoor with heavy furniture. The silence in the kitchen buzzed in their ears. Langford finally broke it. "Whatever's in that wall, we're not dealing with a missing child case anymore." Dean muttered, "This is way past missing persons. This is something else." Claire turned to them. "You said Joseph Granger disappeared after Eva vanished." Langford nodded. "Yeah, what if ... he didn't disappear?" Claire said. "What if he went in?" They stared at her. And then Langford said, "We need to find out everything we can about this house, its history, its owners, anyone who lived here before." Claire nodded, because one thing was now terrifyingly clear. That basement wasn't just a place, it was a prison for time, and something had been trapped in there. For years, something that didn't want to be alone anymore. The journal beneath the floorboards the next morning. Claire sat on the front porch with a thick blanket wrapped around her. She hadn't slept. The events of the previous day kept replaying in her mind. The wall, the bones, the whisper. "You brought her out. Now you must go in." Those words haunted her, not just because of how they were spoken, but because they felt real, like a warning or a promise. Detective Langford returned just after sunrise. He didn't knock. He simply walked up the steps and sat beside her, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. His eyes were dark and heavy, like he hadn't slept either. "I ran the house records," he said, handing her a cup. "There's more than we thought." Claire looked at him, dreading what he might say. Langford continued. "This land before the house was built was once part of a small settlement in the 1800s. Some religious offshoot, no official name. They vanished in 1879. No records of where they went, just gone." Claire tightened the blanket around her. Locals called it the Hollow Time. A legend said they believed the world outside was cursed. That time itself was a disease that made people forget who they were. She looked at him slowly. "So they tried to stop time." Langford nodded. "Or escape it." Claire whispered, "And now the house is built right on top of it." Langford sipped his coffee. "It gets worse." He pulled a worn notebook from his bag and placed it on her lap. The leather cover was cracked, stained, and brittle at the edges. "We found this inside a locked box in the attic, hidden under the insulation. Looks like it belonged to Joseph Granger." Claire opened it carefully. The handwriting inside was small, messy, and frantic. The first page read, "If you find this, don't go near the stones." She flipped through more pages. Most of them were ramblings, dates, diagrams, circles and eyes drawn over and over. But one page stood out. "She hears it now. The house talks when it's cold. She walks around even when I lock the trap. I don't think she's aging anymore. I think she's becoming like him." Claire's hands trembled as she read the next part aloud. "The man in the wall isn't a man. He's time twisted into shape. He told me if I stayed, I'd forget what day it was, that no one would find us, and I believed him, until I started aging, and she didn't." Langford shook his head. "He lived with her down there for years." Claire felt sick. He wrote that she stopped growing, but he didn't. He must have thought staying down there would save him too. Langford added, "Eventually, he sealed the wall. Maybe he thought it would trap whatever that presence was." Claire closed the book gently, but it didn't. Langford's voice was low. "No, it just waited." That afternoon, Claire visited the hospital again. Eva was sitting up this time, drawing quietly with crayons. When she saw Claire, she smiled. "I knew you'd come back." Claire sat beside her. "I wanted to ask you something." Eva looked up, her eyes wide and calm. "Is it about the man?" Claire nodded. "Do you know what he is?" Eva blinked, as if searching for the words. "He's not a man, not anymore. He used to be someone. But the longer you stay with him, the more he changes you. He says if you forget your birthday, you don't grow older." Claire whispered, Is that what happened to you? Eva nodded slowly. He told me to stop remembering, so I stopped. I stayed quiet, still, like a doll. Claire's throat tightened. Did he hurt you? Eva looked confused. No, he said he was protecting me. He was afraid of the outside world. He said time makes people leave. Time makes people die. Claire's voice shook. Do you want to go back? The little girl's eyes filled with sudden fear. No, no, please, don't take me back. Claire took her hand gently. I won't, I promise. Eva looked down at her drawing. A small girl in a dark room. A tall figure beside her, made of black swirls and long limbs, standing in a wall of stones. He's angry, Eva whispered. He doesn't like the silence anymore. Claire stared at the drawing. The figure didn't look human at all. It looked like time given form, long, twisted, dark and waiting. That night, Claire returned to the house again alone. She knew she shouldn't. Langford had warned her, but something inside told her it wasn't over. Not until she faced it. Not until she understood. She went back into the basement. The trapdoor was still blocked with furniture, but she moved it all aside. She climbed down the ladder slowly, flashlight in hand. The tunnel felt colder than ever. She stepped carefully toward the wall. The crawl space was still open, still filled with bones and strange symbols. Claire stared into the darkness. Then she said it aloud. I'm here. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air shifted. The stones groaned. A voice whispered, not from her ears, but from inside her mind. She was mine. Claire swallowed hard. She's not yours anymore. The whisper became louder, angrier. She was safe. Claire stepped closer. You kept her hidden from the world. You stole 10 years from her. She didn't suffer. She was still. Claire raised her voice. She's a child. She was never meant to be still. She was meant to live. The crawl space pulsed with sudden heat, like the stones were alive. A deep groaning sound echoed through the walls. Claire felt dizzy. Time felt like it bent around her. Her watch spun backward. The flashlight flickered. Her hands blurred like an old photograph. And then everything stopped. Silence. Stillness. And a voice. Calm this time. You will forget this moment. Claire whispered through clenched teeth. No, I won't. I'll remember, and I'll make sure no one else ever ends up in your walls. The room pulsed once more. Then, slowly, the air began to warm again. Claire turned, climbed the ladder, and shut the trapdoor. She sealed it for good, that night, with nails, screws and chains. But even as she lay in bed hours later, her ears still rang with that final whisper. Time always finds its way. The clockmaker's curse. Claire didn't sleep for days. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the crawl space, the bones, the twisting symbols, and heard the voice whispering through her soul. Time always finds its way. She kept thinking, what if it wasn't just a haunting? What if the man or whatever he became wasn't a ghost, but a result of something darker, older? She needed help, real help, so she turned to the town's historian. A quiet man named Ilias Thorne, who had lived in Willowmere for over 70 years. His shop was a dusty room filled with old clocks, forgotten maps, and local legends most people ignored. When Claire told him about the house, the wall, and the journal, Elias didn't laugh or look surprised. Instead, he simply asked, "Did he speak to you?" Claire froze. "You know about him?" Elias nodded, walking slowly to a locked drawer. From it, he pulled out a brittle paper map and an old yellowed newspaper clipping. "Your house was built on the old Storytime settlement," he said. "They weren't just religious. They believed in ... slowing the world." He placed the map before her. There was a man named Tobias Harlow, a clockmaker. He believed time wasn't natural, that it was something pushed onto humans, something violent. He created rituals, markings, a philosophy. He claimed that if a person stayed still long enough, they could step outside time entirely. Claire's heart raced. That sounds like what happened to Eva. Elias tapped the map. "Your basement. That's where Tobias lived. The townspeople said he carved symbols into his walls, hoping to trap time, or slow it, or twist it." Claire whispered, "Did it work?" Elias looked up at her with tired, sad eyes. "It worked too well. People disappeared. Children stopped growing. Clocks spun backward. Animals died and never decayed. Then one day, the entire settlement vanished. No fire, no blood, just gone." He handed her the newspaper clipping. It was dated 1904 and headlined, Local boy found unaged after 30 years, claims time never passed. Claire stared at the article. A boy had been discovered in a barn, hidden behind stone walls, claiming he never got hungry, never grew, never changed. He was taken to a hospital, but soon after vanished again, no trace. Elias said, "The theory is, some people stepped outside time, but didn't know how to step back in. They were lost in the stillness." Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "Is that what's in my wall?" Elias nodded. "A remnant, maybe part of Tobias himself, or something his rituals left behind." Claire clutched the newspaper. Eva is out, but she's still afraid. She still hears him. Elias looked down at the ticking clocks around them. If she remembers him, he's not done with her. Back at the hospital, Claire found Eva asleep. She was now under psychiatric care, but doctors still couldn't explain her physical condition. Her heart was strong, her organs normal, but her bones hadn't aged past age 6. Claire sat beside her and whispered, "I won't let him take you back, I promise." Suddenly, Eva stirred. Her eyes opened, but they looked different, wide, distant. She whispered, "He's here." Claire leaned in. Where? Eva raised her hand and pointed not to the window, or the hallway, to Claire. "He's watching through you now." Claire's chest tightened. That night, back home, she stood in front of the mirror and stared at herself. What did Eva mean? Then, she noticed something chilling. Her wall clock wasn't ticking. Neither was her wristwatch. Her phone kept rebooting. Her reflection blinked before she did. She backed away from the mirror, and in that quiet, she felt it, the stillness. It had followed her. It wasn't just the house, it was her. Claire rushed back into the basement one final time. She wasn't afraid now. She was angry. She pulled away the chains and bolts, opened the trap door, and dropped into the tunnel. The air was thick and humming. The crawlspace was closed again, sealed somehow. She screamed into the wall. "What do you want from me?" The stones trembled. Symbols began to glow faintly. "To be remembered." Claire clenched her fists. "You trapped a child. You don't deserve to be remembered." The voice was louder now. "She was safe with me. The world would have broken her. Time would have torn her apart." Claire cried out, "She's not yours." Silence. Then take my place." The wall cracked open, revealing the crawlspace. It pulsed, like it was breathing. Claire's mind began to spin. Her skin tingled. Her memories blurred. For a second, she couldn't remember her own last name. He was trying to pull her in. She stumbled back and fell to her knees. Her body felt heavy. And then she remembered the journal. She pulled it from her bag and opened the page with the symbols. She read them aloud. The walls screamed, that the tunnel shook. The crawlspace snapped shut with a thunderous slam. Dust and stones flying. The air stilled. The basement was just a basement again, and the stillness was gone. Claire sealed the trapdoor permanently that night. Cement steel. Then she moved out the next day. Eva was adopted by a distant aunt who had been located in Oregon. Claire visited often, and each time Eva looked just a little bit older. The spell had finally broken. But sometimes, on quiet nights, Claire could still feel it, not fear, but remembrance, because what the man in the wall wanted wasn't death, it was not to be forgotten. The forgotten ones. It had been nearly a year since Claire left Willowmere. She now lived in a quiet coastal town 2 hours away. Her new home had large windows, open skies, and most importantly, no basement. Every room was full of light. No creaking floorboards, no flickering bulbs, no voices in the walls. But still, on certain nights, when the wind howled or the house grew too still, Claire found herself holding her breath, listening, not because she believed the presence had followed her, but because some part of her feared it was never truly gone. One day, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from Eva, not a photo, but a letter written in uneven but improving handwriting. "Dear Claire, I have a dog now. Her name is Pickle. I'm going to a real school. I'm learning numbers and how to swim. I had my birthday last week. I turned 11. I remember everything, but now I'm not afraid of remembering. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for bringing me back." Claire read it over and over. Then she cried long, hard, shaking tears. Eva was growing. Time had started again, but the past still had one more story to tell. That same evening, Claire received a call from Detective Langford. "Something's come up," he said. "You're going to want to see this." She met him back in Willowmere, in a quiet office behind the old courthouse. Spread across his desk were photographs, blurry scans of documents, recently declassified by the state's Historical Society. Langford pointed at a file. This was hidden for decades, locked away by some secret preservation group. Apparently, they were trying to stop panic, or maybe just hide mistakes. Claire looked closer. It was an inventory list from 1892, titled Recovered Children from Storytime site. Names, ages, conditions, most were marked unstable or lost to time. At the bottom, in faded red ink, a handwritten note, 12 taken, only 1 returned, unchanged. Claire whispered, Eva. Langford nodded. She wasn't the first, but she may be the last. Claire leaned back, stunned all this time. Eva was part of something larger, loop of history erased from the public eye. A dozen children had gone missing, experimented on, hidden in that house or others like it. Only Eva remained untouched, frozen, then freed. Then Claire had been the one to pull her back. Langford said quietly, You broke the cycle. Claire stared at the file. Did I? Or just interrupt? It 1 week later, Claire returned to Willowmere one last time. Not to visit anyone, not to fix anything, but to remember. She stood in front of the house. It looked smaller now, older, almost sad. The real estate company had struggled to sell it. People talked about strange noises, cracked walls, doors that locked on their own, but no one knew the truth, not fully. Claire placed a small box on the porch. Inside it, the journal of Joseph Granger, a photo of Eva from her birthday, and a note. This house held darkness, but it also gave one girl another chance at life. Let her story never be buried again. Let no one be forgotten. She left without looking back. 2 months later, Claire published her story anonymously. It went viral online, titled The Girl Who Didn't Age and the House That Stole Time. Most people thought it was fiction, others weren't so sure. Conspiracy forums lit up with comments, theories, old maps resurfacing, hidden archives being searched. The phrase Storytime began trending, but Claire never responded, never revealed herself, because this story wasn't about fame, it was about truth and healing and survival. On her next visit to Oregon, Claire met Eva and her new guardians at a beach cafe. Eva was taller now. Her cheeks were rounder, her voice a little deeper, but her smile still full of light. They walked by the ocean. Eva skipped ahead, holding Pickle's leash, while Claire walked beside her aunt. She's doing better, the woman said. At night, she still wakes up sometimes, says she hears ticking in her dreams, but she's not afraid anymore. She always goes back to sleep. Claire smiled. She's stronger than anyone I've ever met. Eva came running back. Claire, look what I found. She held up a perfect shell, shaped like a spiral clock. Claire took it gently. It's beautiful, Eva said. I want you to keep it, so you don't forget. Claire knelt down, holding the shell close. I will never forget you. Eva smiled wide, then hugged her tightly. Then in that moment, Claire realized something she hadn't before. Yes, the house had been cursed. Yes, it had stolen time, trapped souls, whispered madness. But Eva was proof that light can be pulled from darkness, that life can begin again, even after years of silence, that what is lost can be found, and that sometimes the scariest stories end with hope. Final lesson: not all monsters hide in the dark. Some wear the face of protection, of comfort, even of stillness. But the human soul was never meant to be still. We are built to grow, to move forward, to change. Time, however cruel or mysterious, is a gift. And sometimes, the greatest act of courage is not escaping the darkness, but helping someone else step back into the light.